Ash, thank you for coming onto the show. You are a West Coast blues and rock artist raised in Alameda, California, which makes you my fellow Bay Area brother. Um, you know, I
Oh,
wasn't
nice.
I wasn't sure how Bay Area you were until I saw that you had posted a photo of you holding a bag from Ike sandwiches during the lockdown. So I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Which I would do the same
yeah.
exact thing.
Right, right. I love that place. Actually, funny you say that. Maybe I just started going there, maybe like 2 or 3 months ago. I had no idea what their menu was, and then I found that they had vegetarian and vegan options, and I'm a vegan, so.
Yeah, so I went to SF State, and they actually they put a Ike sandwiches at the bottom floor near the arcade, and I was always
Wow.
there like all the time. But what was your experience like growing up in the Bay Area, and what role does Bay Area culture play in your music?
That's a good question. So my experience, uh, it was a very, I guess, colorful one to say the least.
Hmm.
There's so much diversity. I'm sure you know. I grew up mainly in Alameda.
Hmm.
Um, for those that don't know, it's basically an island, a small island next to Oakland. You can get there either by the Posey Tube, which runs underwater, or one of the 3 or 4 bridges that connects to Oakland. Um, and I had a pretty, I want to say, a very basic kind of upbringing. I'm half Filipino, and on my mom's
Hmm.
side, and my father is Iranian. Um, and we were, pretty basic family. We were like middle class, and um, most of the time I was indoors. I was very introverted. I wasn't a very outgoing as I am today.
Hmm.
So I guess most of the culture and the different vibe I was getting was mainly filtered through friends or their experiences. I guess I was vicariously living through them.
Hmm.
And mostly my mother's side, Filipino side. My dad would tend to always be working. He worked in San Francisco,
Hmm.
but mainly, I guess I would see everything through a window. I guess my mom, both my mother and father were very protective.
Hmm.
They being the first generation here in the Bay, and they came here for a better life from Philippines, from Iran, respectively, and they wanted to make sure their kids grew up right. And when I mean that, I mean go to school, pick a degree.
Hmm.
My mom's favorite, of course, is be a doctor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't exempt from those either. But and we would drive around Oakland, drive around San Francisco whenever we could, and I would it would just be such a almost like a culture shock compared to Alameda. I mean,
Hmm.
in Alameda, it's a quiet town, um, mainly those who are, I guess, middle class and above.
Hmm.
But when you go to Oakland, you see all kinds of stuff, different kinds of folks
Hmm.
through different walks of life. They could be living on the street, or they could be, you know, really flamboyant. I never really saw that much in Alameda, and Oakland was one of those. That in San Francisco, it's just so much diversity and and just different vibes in such a small space.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
one of the reasons why I really love the Bay Area. Um,
And how did that
uh,
factor into the music?
so the way that it factored in um, mainly was as I started taking lessons at a young age. I started getting interested in the blues.
Mm-hmm.
Most musicians know the blues are kind of like um, most popular ones are like Louisiana or Chicago. We
Mm-hmm.
don't really have like a huge blues type scene, roots type music
Mm-hmm.
um, in the Bay. But um, what a lot of people don't know is that there was actually most of them would either come West Coast from Louisiana, from Chicago, even Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and they would cultivate this new style. And when I learned that, I was like, holy crap! I'm like, I was in like a hotbed of like blues culture, but you rarely hear about it
Mm-hmm.
unless you do a lot of digging, unless you're like hardcore and so I felt this kind of I don't know, I don't want to sound too weird, but like a spiritual connection
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
the old blues artists of from then um it kind of inspired me to I guess try to bring it to bring it on to the forefront so that people could see like there is actually a lot of culture musically here. I mean, nowadays, of course, it's hip hop, which I don't have any gripes against. I love all types of music.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, a lot of people are saying a lot of my musical friends they move elsewhere. You know, besides the rent and all that stuff being really high, and they
Mm-hmm.
would say it's not the same musically. But I want to like bring it back. You know, I want to bring that kind of that artistic, that musical roots back to the Bay, essentially.
Now, in an interview with the rockpit.net, you brought up a really
Yeah.
interesting quote that so that you resonated with, and it goes, "quote You can lie down for people to walk on you, and they will still complain that you are not flat enough. Just live your life." I'm not entirely sure what this quote means to you, but I know as a fellow creative, I vibe with it because it speaks to sort of the duality of being an artist, where on one hand you have people in your family or your circle of friends or your colleagues who want you to pursue like a this type of career or a practical career or something that aligns with their preferences and aspirations. But on the other hand, within your own heart that you have this creative work that you want to do that gives you the most meaning. So my question to you is, what does this quote mean to you? And have you always felt accepted within your respective circles, or did you grow up as more of a black sheep?
Um, uh, I want to say, that I guess a little of both.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a tendency for folks to, you know, mis mm, like, misinterpret or not fully grasp what you're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
especially in art, because there's no limitation. I mean, um, I could look at something now and I would totally, just gloss over and not understand what the heck's going on. A
Mm-hmm.
year later, I can see, I don't know, hear those same lines, read poetry, or hear that same song, and all of a sudden it clicks,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Initially, I wouldn't understand. I would probably think he or she would be talking about something else that, just doesn't affect me now. But later on, and I notice that now they do. It starts becoming clearer as you age, as you cultivate who you are essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I feel like a little bit of both. When you think of the blues, when you think of roots music, you think of well, the main demographic is African Americans, right? They
Mm-hmm.
would be a lot of the stars, a lot of the legends, B.B. King, Albert King,
Mm-hmm.
um, Memphis Slim. This is a predominantly African American genre,
Mm-hmm.
right there next to jazz. So I remember when I was still in high school, a lot of my teachers, when they found out I had like a garage band, they would, they would poke fun. And, I don't mean to offend anyone, but they were like, oh, but, you know, you're lighter than than most that play the blues. Like, are you sure you're doing it right? I'm
Mm-hmm,
like,
mm-hmm.
I know it was a joke, but it's like, there's no like easy way to joke about that. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it doesn't sound right. It's like art is art. Do you can feel a certain way. It has nothing to do with how you look. Like I said, I'm half Filipino, but I look like I'm from the Middle East, and so a lot of people, when they see the music, when they see who I am, they probably think it's Middle Eastern music or something like that. But then they're like, "Holy crap, you're playing, rock and roll or blues or mandolin, banjo." It's like
Mm-hmm,
you're
mm-hmm.
like, you know,
Like the expectation versus
bunch of
reality.
right, exactly. And
Yeah.
and 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 a lot of folks are just, and I get it, where human beings are, we 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 tend to be very visually stimulated,
Mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
know. Um, that's the face value. I mean, I'm that way. If I want to go eat somewhere, I want to know, when I pop up like on Yelp and I check their menu, I
Yeah,
want to see some pictures,
yeah, yeah,
does this look appetizing or does it not?
yeah, yeah,
Right? You
yeah.
don't know until you're actually there. And sometimes you fall in love with the ambiance of the place. It's not really the food or what have you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I do. I've met, some artists that are, they're kind of like, I see what you're doing, but there's like, it's like a competition. I
Mm-hmm,
see what
mm-hmm.
you're doing. Some folks are really good at it. They're they're pure souls. They're just like, yeah, man, you're a musician, I'm a musician. We need to stick together. You know what I mean? Or you're an artist, I'm an artist. Doesn't matter if he paints or he's an illustrator. Art is art. Just
Mm-hmm.
there's this community. Of course, there's some that where you feel like some kind of stereotype or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what you're doing. So yeah, black sheep, both. I'd say both.
Now, I actually like that you mentioned, wanting to bring back that level of artistry because I think there was a quote from, I believe it was like Nina Simone, where she
Mm-hmm.
said,
Yeah,
again, I know I could totally be wrong about who said this, but the quote goes something like, jazz is classical music for black musicians, in the sense that
yes,
like it's really
yes,
technical, it's really, really
yes,
technical, and blues is right there with that level of
right,
technicality. And,
right,
as with all artists, and you kind of touched base on this a little bit earlier, what we create today is often a reflection of what we've been inspired by in the past. The problem with me
right.
asking you what your inspiration is right now is that in 5 months' time, that answer could completely change. It's kind of like what you said about, your feelings and your assessment about something might change over time as you get older. So I guess what I want to know is which artists inspire you from an overall level, like not just music, but how they handle themselves in terms of their business and their career, their relationship with fans, like the overall legacy. Like who would you consider the great music goats in terms of like, oh, I really want to emulate like the impact in what they've done?
Wow. Okay, so if you put it that way, I was just gonna go right off the bat, like who I listen to all the time and how I want to play like them. But the first, I guess the first person right off the top of my head, I would say, I guess Michael Jackson would be just the way, and it's probably cliche.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm half Filipino, but um, just the way he resonated, and this is probably just understatements, but just the way he resonated with like the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, when you look at the beginning of his evolution, right? His he was more of like you can see that there's jazz influences. I mean, there's a lot of um, heavy R&B.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was disco. But
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
as he started, you know, performing more and writing more other songs, and he was able to evolve into something completely different. I mean, when you look at the music video of Billie Jean, that Michael and the Michael from um, uh,
Off the Wall
I don't
or
Off the
earlier?
Wall, or no, I just lost the song, but Dirty Diana. There you
Okay.
go.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
One of his more rock and roll kind of. But that leap is musically, there's not much different between the
Mm-hmm.
two. When you look at the energy, I mean, that's what attracts me. It's not musically, because music, somehow they're all connected somehow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the energy, it's like a completely different person, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have you have, besides the leather and the spikes and everything,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you see how he can just change on almost on a whim. I know it took time before it got there, but it was like a completely different packaging. And no matter what he put out, he could be talking about saving the world. He could be talking about, you know, um, saving, you know, third world countries and kids who are hungry, and he can go from completely different extremes,
Mm-hmm.
and people would just be like backing him like 100% of the time, you know. And of course, I know sometimes I bring this up, and people are like, it's like a tender subject because given his private life. But when I'm asked a question about music, I tend to stay on that topic.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Exactly.
Michael Jackson, the musician, not
Exactly.
Mike what at home,
The
whatever. Same
person
thing with
and
Whitney
all
Houston.
that.
Right. I'm talking about this. Like, for instance, I used to talk. I talked to my Spanish teacher one time when I was in high school, and she was like, "Oh, you like the music, Whitney Houston?" I was like, "Yeah, she's just an amazing." And I'm totally coming from a musical standpoint, and she's like, "Yeah, but X, Y, Z." I'm like, "That has nothing to do with her being an amazing artist. She's just. I mean, listen to her songs. There's no way you can. There's no when I listen to them. I don't know about anyone else, but when I listen to them, I feel I don't remember any of the things that have happened recently. I'm just totally captivated, and I'm sent to like another plane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this woman, these notes, and it's, I can keep going and going, but yeah. So I guess Michael Jackson, it would be, he would be that for me. And he just transcends music,
Yeah.
really.
So it's like from
Um,
that perspective of just someone being so versatile that whatever sort of genre they step into, they make it their own, and they're able to
exactly,
leverage that
exactly.
that platform for good.